Heard there the king of the Amazulu, Zwelithini, announcing that regiment Ingaba, which he says is going to be tasked with defending and protecting the Ingonyama Trust and the monarch himself. He made the announcement at that Imbizo in Ulundi in northern Kwa-Zulu Natal today.
It comes after a proposal by a high-level panel led by former President Ronald Lamola that the Ingonyama Trust, of course he's the main trustee, be scrapped and rather the people on the ground be granted title deeds. The Zulu King wants the Ingonyama Trust to remain intact. Simpiwe Makanya attended today's event.
Let me just touch on the issues that the King spoke about in his address today. He spoke really about the fact that the Zulu nation has got a history in terms of acquiring land in the province, saying that the Zulu nation fought hard to get the land that it's currently enjoying in this province, and also saying that he will do everything that he can in his powers to ensure that for as long as he's still alive, this land is not taken away from the Zulu people. He is basically saying that this is a direct attack on the Zulu nation. He's also made a very bold statement with regards to how the political parties in the country are campaigning on this issue of land, saying or rather urging Zulu people to actually be very careful and not be exploited by political parties, and yet when their votes are needed.
Well, thousands of people descended on Ulundi in Kwa-Zulu Natal today in response to that Imbizo, or gathering called by the Zulu King Goodwill Zwelithini. Today the King said any move to dissolve the Ingonyama Trust was a provocation of the Zulu people and would be met with resistance, including secession if necessary. It has certainly raised the temperature in the debate about land expropriation and the rights of the rural poor living on traditional land. Well, we're joined now on the line by ANC NEC member Ronald Lamola, who's been the party spokesperson on this issue. Good evening to you, Mr. Lamola, and thank you for talking to us. The King says if necessary, he will fight to have Kwa-Zulu Natal declared a separate homeland. Now that's some tough talk.
Yes, we did observe and listen to the proceedings in the northern part of KZN. But the ANC's position has always been very clear. We have said that people must participate in the current process of the expropriation debate in Section 25. All South Africans, young, old, rural, urban, everyone must participate with the aim of finding a long-lasting solution to the land question of our country. And the issue that the King is responding to, you will know that, as you are speaking in the bulletin, is a position that was formulated after an investigation of the high-level panel, which was chaired by former President Ronald, which is not an ANC position, but is a recommendation from the high-level panel to Parliament. And all political parties and all South Africans are going to engage with that recommendation, including rural, urban, and also the House of Traditional Leaders. So it is at that level that high-level panel is going to be engaged.
He's linked the issue of the Ingonyama Trust to the issue of the historical dispossession of the Zulu people, and it was particularly, of course, important to do so for him on this anniversary of the defeat of Zulu King Cetshwayo in 1879. I mean, there's a lot of emotion that's going to be attached to this issue, whichever way it goes.
Yes, it's very true. There have been lots of wars of dispossessions that were fought by various kings, chiefs, and many indigenous people of our country, King Cetshwayo, King Skukune, and many other kings across the country. But what is very important from the position of the ANC is that we have been very clear from the beginning of the process that the expropriation process, at the end, the ANC's position is that we must retain state ownership of the land, a mixture of state ownership of the land, communal ownership of the land, and also by ownership by the people through title deeds. So the issue of Ingonyama Trust, including land held by the people in rural areas is still a discussion under consideration within the ANC. It's going to be a comprehensive discussion. How do we ensure and protect security of tenure of the rural people? How do we make sure that rural people have got the same rights or got the same protection in the land in which they reside like any other person in the urban area, so that their security of tenure is protected, is safe, and it's a tenure that they are guaranteed of. So that is a discussion which is currently unfolding, and we do not at all intend to take away communal ownership of rights. There might be a situation, a creative resolution to such a situation where communal rights, for example, PTOs, and some of the rights that are held by rural people are being able to be registered and recognized even through the deed registration process. It's some of the proposals that are on the table, but there's also a proposal on the table to discuss whether you need to give to rural people title deeds or not. But there have been concerns that have been raised, and there are still discussions that if you do that at some point 10 to 20 years from today, you might also find rural people being dispossessed. So all those issues are on the table, and the ANC at the right time will be able to engage with all kings, rural people, and everyone and say, this is what we think people must input into, which can give us a comprehensive policy. So in other words, we are going to deal comprehensively with issues of rural tenure, security of tenure for all rural people of South Africa. So we're not only going to deal with the issue of Ingonyama Trust in isolation. So it will be dealt with in that context.
But of course, at the heart of the former president's objections is exactly that issue around land tenure. And they basically saying that the Trust's current practices were inconsistent with government's land policy and could not secure land tenure for residents. And yet today we saw speaker after speaker, you could say, beat the drums of war should this go against the king. They were specifically concerned with the Ingonyama Trust. And of course, there's been this suggestion that the king, as the sole trustee of the Ingonyama Trust, has been running it like his personal fiefdom. I mean, this is a very, very emotive issue in that part of the country.
Yes, the ANC from the beginning of this process, including the expropriation hearings, has been very clear that people must participate. We must bring our participation with cool heads and deal with the matter in a manner that all South Africans feel included. And at the end, the solution must give us a long-lasting solution, which all South Africans will have a right of tenure in our lands. All South Africans will feel that they are part of this country, their dignity is being restored. So this is a very important discussion for us, because you will know that almost 87 or almost 72 or towards 87% of the land is in private hands, which in their majority is white people. So the land that is in communal areas or in rural areas is a fraction of the land. It's not a big margin that can derail this program. So what we want South Africans to do is to focus on the main issue. Let's discuss the real policy. How do we transform to ensure that the land belongs to the people across the whole country, and that the demographics of the country reflects in the land, that all South Africans, black and white, they feel that they've got ownership of our country, and they can feel their dignity being restored in this country. And in that regard, it is the context in which the ANC discusses this issue, including communal land, also the issue of Ingonyama Trust. It's not something in isolation. It's going to be a comprehensive policy which will resolve all the challenges, the land question of our country.
With respect, though, Mr. Lamola, for the Zulu King, this is specifically about the Ingonyama Trust. But also, the question I have for you is, surely the threats of secession and bloodshed, those certainly can't go unanswered. If you remember, of course, the bloodshed that led us to this legislation in the first place. Is the president likely to respond at all to those threats?
Yes, that's why we say this issue needs cool heads. It needs to be treated with the very sensitivity, because talks alone can create an environment which is untenable. I mean, the Rwandan genocide was started with talks. So we need South Africans to participate in the current discussion on the land in a manner that is responsible and in a manner that is going to enhance and promote peace and security without threatening anyone. That's why the constitutional review process is aimed at that. The government is following constitutional means and constitutional processes and legislative processes which are peaceful, which encourages everyone to put his views there. And those views will be considered by the panel, the ad hoc committee, which is tasked to deal with the land question. So I think everyone, I've attended most of the hearings, it has been very peaceful. And I think even all South Africans, they are still going to participate in Kwa-Zulu Natal, in the Northwest, Gauteng. So it's an important discussion, I agree. The president, I think at the right moment, he will consider the matter. And I think I don't want to speak for him, but at the right time, he is going to be able to respond to the matter. But as the ANC were very clear that people must continue to participate in this process of Section 25 on the land question, at the end, all South Africans must be united. They must feel as being part of this country. They must feel that the land question is being addressed to reflect the demographics of our country. And in the rural areas, people must have security of tenure. There must be clarity as to who and how rural people are going to use their land. So there is no specific target by the ANC to the Ingonyama Trust. From the beginning, the ANC has spoken about communal land. It has spoken about giving security of tenure. So it is in that context that we are going to engage with everyone, including Contra-Lesa, the kings across the country. It is in that context that we are going to engage them on this matter. And we don't think that there is a need for panic. There is a need for everyone to put their heads on the table and provide solutions of how can we address these questions.
There is a sense, though, that you as the governing party are caught between a rock and a hard place, because it doesn't seem that you can have both ideas on the table at the same time. They seem to be mutually exclusive because the king is insisting that land is his. And so how are you going to guarantee, that security of tenure for rural people if that's how he sees it? There's also, of course, the bigger criticism that the governing party has really been caught with its pants down on this, because the criticism goes that you jumped on the EFF's bandwagon without thinking about all the bigger considerations, and that's exactly what we are beginning to see now.
No, it's not true at all. The governing party, it was formed to resolve the land question. When the ANC was formed in 1912, it was to deal with the land question. Among the first laws that the ANC enacted when it came into government in 1994 was laws dealing with the land question, the restitution of land, the protection of farm dwellers. So after 24 years, it is befitting that the ANC must review a policy that is clear, has not worked, to deal with, in particular, land reform through a market-driven land reform policy. So it is necessary that South Africans must debate this issue of the land. It is necessary how it must be resolved. And that's why the ANC itself is also inputting into this debate. It has been clear what it thinks should happen to the land question in terms of the expropriation. It has also been clear in terms of the communal land, but it has also been very clear in terms of the kind of tenure that we must still have. But at the end, what we want with all this kind of tenure is that it must reflect the demographic of our country. It must be clear that this is a rainbow nation where everyone has got equal access to the land and his rights of tenure are protected.
All right, I want you to have a listen to some of what the monarch had to say today, because of course, while one appreciates your call for cool heads, a lot of the language today was very explosive. Let's just have a listen to what was said today in Ulundi.
Isono senu njengoba kwakunjalo endulo ukuba nguZulu nokuba nomhlaba enihlezi kuwo kanti ifunwa yebo yizo kungaba khona abafisa ukuligqokisa leli qiniso benze sengathi okushiwoyo kakwikho.
Right, of course, for those of you who don't understand isiZulu, what the king essentially was saying there is that to his subjects, of course, your biggest sin today is that you are Zulu and you have land. You're not wanted. Some would like to pretend that is not what they are saying. I mean, Mr. Lamola, he's really making the issue a very clear one, that unless things stay as they are, he's going to see this as a direct attack on the Zulu nation, on the Zulu people. That's how he's framing this discussion. So how on earth then, in that context, do you try and talk about securing land tenure for, of course, rural residents on those traditional lands?
No, the discussion has to happen because you will know that the ANC wants to build a democratic society, and the foundation of the values of our society is the Constitution. So everything that is done constitutionally, and we are very clear that everyone must participate, including traditional leaders, rural people, and everyone in the land question.
What happens if it doesn't happen that way? If it doesn't go that way, he's saying bloodshed, he's saying secession. If you don't do it the way I want to, it's going to go down to the wire. How do we deal with the tensions of a constitutional democracy, as you're outlining, and the tensions with traditional leadership?
Yes, that's why we will never promote bloodshed, and we will never promote the way of secession, and that's why we are very clear that the things should be done through constitutional means, and we never send soldiers on the debate, and that's why when you look at a discussion, it is happening across the country. Everyone is inputting. Everyone is participating.
But no one else has called for bloodshed, Mr. Lamola. No one else has called for bloodshed. Most of the hearings you are describing have been very different from what we heard today.
AfroForum did say that something is going to happen if anything touches their land. So it shows that the land question is an emotive issue. But it has to be addressed because there is inequality in terms of the land ownership. There is no equitable redress. So it's a question that has to be engaged. And I think everyone will be engaged, including Contra-Lesa. The ANC did have discussions with Contra-Lesa. I know the Minister of Cooperative Governance had also engagements with the Contra-Lesa and Kwa-Zulu Natal. We will also have lots of engagements with the chiefs across the country on the question. It has to be engaged. We must open up the space for enhancing and deepening discussion and democracy on the land question. It cannot be avoided, but it must be done in a manner that enhances peace and security. So it's not an issue that must be approached from a violent context. That is the position that the ANC promotes, that everyone must engage in this dialogue in a peaceful manner.
Right, we'll have to leave it there with Ronald Lamola, ANC NEC member. What was the old saying? All are equal before the law, but perhaps some more equal than others. Stay with us. We've got more news for you after this quick break.